Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you very much for stopping by and joining us. Very, very excited, to start these campus conversations. One of the very many we hope to have as the semester and the year begins.
Yes,
fantastic.
I am looking forward to it.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, let's get started. First of all, a huge welcome to everyone. Thank you all for being here and for joining us for these campus conversations. It is important and something that we stress, and what we want here within Associated Students and as your student leaders is to make sure you have the opportunity to ask, to be able to inform us of your concerns and questions that you may have, so we can better know how to assist you. That's really what the bottom line is, and what we want to try to do here within Associated Students and our job as student leaders. Before we begin, I wanted to introduce myself, and then I will definitely introduce our panelists today and our president. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Hay, and I currently proudly serve as your Associated Students president for this academic year. Basically, the format of this conversation is very simple. So for those of you who went through which I'm sure all of you have, through the process to join, you had the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have had. And so we compiled those questions, and we are going to be asking them throughout the conversations, throughout the 45 minutes that we have throughout this conversation. And we'll be asking those questions. And if there's any point that you have a conversation that you want to ask during the conversation, you may do so using the Q&A feature on Zoom. Those questions will be directed to our tech support, who will then be able to assist you. We may or may not be able to answer all the questions that you may be asking. So if we are not able to answer them, we will be sure to get to those at a later point. So do not worry if we do see all your questions, and we will get to them as soon as we're able to do so. And so without further ado, I will be welcoming. And also before I do so, I apologize. I also wanted to mention that if you would like to use the live transcript feature, you may do so on the bottom toolbar called Show Subtitles. So you'll be able to do that there. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our president. She was selected as the Woman of the Year by California's Women's Caucus and one of the top 50 women in business by the Pacific Coast Business Times. A woman of distinction in the education by the National Association of Women in Business Leaders, and as a top female business leader in education by the Las Vegas Business Press. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our sixth president and a great person, Dr. Erika Beck.
Hi, Jonathan. I'm so glad to be with you and be with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. So I would first like to give you the opportunity to discuss some of the initiatives that you've all began to work on within your administration, and some of the new and great opportunities that are coming up.
Yeah, I would be delighted to do that. And I just want to thank Associated Students for the invitation, but also for facilitating what I think is going to be a really wonderful series with campus leadership ongoing. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I would preface my remarks by saying my leadership philosophy, and really all of my work in higher education from the moment that I first entered my first classroom as a professor to really this afternoon, has really been guided by the values of equity, inclusion, and belonging. You and I have talked about this quite a bit. And I think that fundamentally means that we are committed to providing all of our students with the resources, tools, and opportunities they need to achieve their greatest aspirations, but also recognizing that different students have different needs, and one size really does not fit all. So we are moving forward on a number of projects and initiatives this year, rooted in our commitment to providing an outstanding, immersive, and equitable learning experience for everyone in our academic community. And one project that I know that you have heard of, Jonathan, that we've talked about a lot, but I hope that everyone else has heard of it, is our brand new Global Hispanic Serving Institution that is commonly referred to with the acronym HSI, so Global HSI Equity Innovation Hub. And that will open its doors to students in the fall of 2024, and it will be located on the east side of Jacaranda Hall. It will feature equity as a core design principle, and really creating a space that fosters aspirational capital and intellectual curiosity. And it will really leverage cutting edge technology to design programming to serve our students and provide interdisciplinary educational pathways in STEM. And all of the skills that that all of our students really need to become the innovators and creators of the future. I thought I might just explain the HSI designation as well. So the because students probably aren't familiar with where that comes from. It actually comes from the Federal Department of Education, and it's defined as a campus that has an undergraduate student population that is at least 25% Latinx. Our Latinx undergraduate student population at CSUN is actually closer to 55%. And it's really important to note that HSIs as a collection of institutions also enroll a really high percentage of students of color from all backgrounds and are likewise minority serving institutions, and we most certainly are. But really, to realize our mission as a thriving HSI and MSI, we really need to shift our focus from the idea of just enrolling a richly diverse student population to graduating all of our students and really propelling our graduates into thriving careers. The Equity Innovation Hub's primary purpose is really to facilitate the elimination of equity gaps on our campus and to learn from and serve as a model for other institutions around the CSU, the state, and the country. The Equity Innovation Hub will really serve as a distinctive sense of place and a pretty powerful symbol of our collective approach to advancing the excellence and future of creative technology, teaching, and learning. The state of California invested $25 million into CSUN to build the HSI Equity Innovation Hub just a couple months after. I know we had conversation about we were able to secure another $25 million from tech giant Apple to accelerate our own institutional transformation, but really open our arms to engage a national network of HSIs to learn from one another and really to add to the dialogue of culturally relevant practices to enhance student success across STEM and other fields of study. And I'm really confident that we will continue to find additional partners and change makers who want to invest in that work. We also received a $40 million gift from Mackenzie Scott and Dan Jewett a few short months ago. It is pretty exciting. Their belief and confidence in what we're doing here on campus really invites everybody to see that CSUN is really an exceptional institution of higher learning, and we are transforming lives for the better. I would just note a couple of additional pieces. As part of my listening tour and in ongoing discussions, I heard many concerns about the continued racial violence and trauma surrounding policing. We've had this conversation, Jonathan. Though the murder of George Floyd and tragically so many others, those events didn't happen on our campus, they affect all of us and really implore us to reflect on our own campus practices to make sure that they really reflect care for our communities of color and respect everybody's lived experiences outside of the campus. So using resources from the Scott gift and in consultation with our police advisory committee that includes faculty, staff, and students, we've retained the services of outside consultants who have a really strong record of looking at university policing practices with an equity lens. And they will be seeking broad campus participation, including all of the students on campus. Encourage you to lean in so that they can get your feedback and we can really work together to advance that work. The Scott gift is also going to allow us to continue to invest in our goals of diversifying our faculty and staff and work together to create holistic and inclusive recruitment, hiring and retention practices that will allow us to continue to benefit from the cultural wealth of a richly diverse faculty, staff, and leadership team. I also, in my conversations with so many of our students, heard a need to build a greater sense of community. And so with the benefit of a Scott gift, we also have the opportunity to think about belonging and student success in new and compelling ways. And this year we'll be engaging in a wide-ranging discussion about the notion of developing a broad complement of identity-based resource centers on campus, physical and aspirational centers of educational equity that also integrate proven strategies in the elimination of the equity gaps that I referred to. This past March, we secured Board of Trustees approval to begin construction on Sierra Hall Annex. It was part of a multi-phase project to renovate Sierra Hall. And the annex features pretty extraordinary, really beautiful, collaborative and sustainable design, and includes a whole host of classrooms that allow for active and flexible learning, study, student collaboration space. It's a pretty exciting project. And that is anticipated to break ground at the end of the calendar year. And we expect construction to be complete by August of 23. The last thing that I would say is that in alignment with the themes that I identified in the 100-day listening tour from all of you, our provost, Dr. Mary Beth Walker, is leading a road mapping process, which will help the whole campus come together and identify our collective priorities for the journey ahead. And I hope that everyone will engage in the many conversations that will be happening around campus as we seek your input in the road ahead. We really want to hear from all of you. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, Jonathan, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have with me.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. And you definitely touch on a lot of aspects and a lot of the questions that had come in through the question feature already. So that is super awesome. And I think it is important. I just want to touch on as well on one of the things that you just left off on was that understanding that these are a lot of the things that are happening around campus and letting students know that, hey, these are, the opportunities that are going to be coming and are very soon to be. And they deserve, and they are a huge part of what we do. And you have a voice, and that students should come and when talking about policing on campus or diversifying faculty, those small things, those small things in the sense of you can come and that word or that conversation that you have with us could have a huge impact down the line, whether it's just a year, 5 years, or even 10 years down the line. And so, I definitely do encourage everyone here and to all our students to really be that voice. And if you have something, and this is really the theme of our conversation, to let us know, because we have that ability, and as your student leaders, to really be able to voice those concerns that you have to the right people. So thank you very much for talking about that, President Beck. And so I'll just head straight into the questions. And I'm actually going to try to based off some of the things that you already began talking about, and I'm talking about the new Equity Hub, and I'm going to read the question directly as is that came in from one of the students. So how will CSUN use this the new HSI Equity Hub to retain and graduate Latinx students? Will Latinos also staff the effort?
Yeah, so I'm so glad that a question came in about the Equity Hub, because it means that you guys are hearing about it and all the excitement around what this really can mean. And I'll say that this project for me is really the culmination of a professional and deeply personal dream, a couple of decades in the making. And I just can't thank the state, the chancellor, and Apple enough for their investment and belief in all of us, the Matador community. So I outlined some of those pieces in my opening remarks, but what I will say is that the Equity Innovation Hub will have the opportunity to not just transform CSUN, and there's no question that it will, by allowing us to really be intentional in how we build educational pathways that result in a richly diverse future in STEM and beyond. But it will also help transform Hispanic serving institutions around the country, because we will open our arms to leaders, faculty, staff, and students across the CSU. So we are leading this effort for the entire California State University system, but really around the country, and find common cause and shape a unified understanding that really, to realize our values, to realize a future that we all dream for, not just for higher education, but really for society more broadly, we really need to more intentionally serve our Latinx and other diverse students with courageous leadership and intentionality, and to do it in a way that is really evidence-based and assesses our progress. And this really will be an all hands on deck community effort of educators, leaders, and advocates, both in our own backyard, but really across the country. So I'm really looking forward to the road ahead. And to your earlier point about leaning into conversations, I think that the full impact of the HSI Equity Innovation Hub is limited only by our imagination. And so I would say lean in as we have these conversations, as you see places you want to participate and engage. It will really be a very extensive and to my mind, one of the most impactful projects we can really embark on in this next chapter of our journey. So, lean in to the conversations and get ready for what comes next, because it's really exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going on to the next question, and talking about the different groups we have on campus and how diversely rich we are, within CSUN. There's been a lot of conversation about diversifying faculty, and I know we've had already some conversations about it, and I know Provost Walker has already done some work on it, but there has been a lot of questions regarding it, and just to head straight into the next question and to read it for you. How do you plan on diversifying faculty, and how do you foresee ensuring that the faculty represents the student population?
Well, I'm so glad that students asked that question, and I would say that that I believe that diversifying the faculty ranks is really critical to advancing academic excellence and student success. And we've had this conversation, and I would say that a university is really rooted in the exchange of ideas. And so in that exchange of ideas, diverse perspectives, identities, and lived experiences really are essential. They're a critical source of our strength and our vitality. And we also know through decades of research that diverse teams are more innovative and more effective. In fact, I just read an article that talked about how diverse teams are smarter than homogenous ones. So really ensuring that we have faculty and staff that reflects the richness of diversity and the cultural wealth of our community is really core to our mission and an absolute priority for me. And I would also say that this is work that requires intentionality, great intentionality, resources, and an equity-minded framework. And it's work that I have been devoted to across my entire career. So this past spring, the university embarked on a major initiative to ensure more equitable faculty recruiting and retention efforts. We did a few things. In addition to assigning 2 faculty equity advocates, they are both members of our faculty, leading a lot of this work. We're initiating a multi-pronged, multifaceted strategy, including changes in how we search for faculty, where we advertise, the language that we use in advertising, training for search committees, pretty substantive revisions to the search manual with equity by design principles at the core, getting back to that intentionality piece, and getting to the evidence-based measuring what we're doing and the impact of what we're doing. We're also adopting some enhanced reporting and analytics tools that will help us understand what is working and what is not. I also just want to really stress that the work in diversifying our faculty and our staff doesn't end when we hire them. We really want our employees, like our students, to thrive on campus, and we want them to want to devote their careers to being matadors. So we will also be exploring ways to increase faculty and staff retention as part of those efforts, because it really is for the entire life cycle of people on campus, and making sure that people are really thriving and wanting to devote their careers to all of you, to our students.
Absolutely, yeah, and I would love to add, and I think that's super important, to recognize that it's not just a one term, or like, hey, we have that, we hired them and all right, now we move on. It is a long-term process, and just as we've been talking about a lot right now, where these things aren't just things that we want to look at as a one-year goal, or just like a get this done within a semester goal. This is something where we want this to be effective and create positive change on campus within the next 2, 5, 10 years down the line. And so that is definitely important. I'm glad you brought that up as well. So I actually wanted to change some gears a little bit in talking about, campus. And there's been a lot of conversation about obviously the transition and how we're going to be doing so in a, in a positive way, in a safe way. And I wanted to, there was several questions brought up about that, but in terms of, student organizations, I know I've been hearing a lot of questions about this, but has there been any plans set out in terms of of allowing them to come back fully onto campus for the spring semester?
Yeah, that's an important question. There's been lots and lots of discussion and lots of planning. Let me begin by saying how wonderful it has been to see so many more students on campus, to see you in real life. And I saw Caitlin night before last at a foundation board meeting and campus event. And to have the opportunity to talk to students in the library and walking around campus and in classrooms and eateries and asking them how they're doing. And I will just say that that all of the students that I have chatted with have just been beaming in delight and being back with their community, with one another, and teaching and learning in person. And one of the things I really love is walking through campus right now and coming upon the small pods of music students in the courtyards and the breezeways. Yeah, it's so great to have musical interludes on our way to a meeting. So it is our sincere hope, knowing how much it means to all of you and to us as well, that we'll be able to return to on-campus meetings and activities next semester without a limit on the number of attendees and with fewer restrictions like physical distancing. There are many variables that will dictate our approach. And of course, our approach is really directed by the protocols that we're required to follow based on LA County public health guidance. So the process will work a little like this. The staff in the Matador Involvement Center will work with the Vice President's office during the 2022 winter break, and they will determine an appropriate and safe way to conduct in-person meetings and events sort of in compliance with any relevant health regulations. But soon information will be sent to all of the clubs and orgs to help them in their planning. But I will say, gosh, we certainly hope so. It is important to us as well. But if COVID has taught us anything, it has taught us humility. So we can't really predict how the virus will behave, but we will respond accordingly and do everything that we can to be back together. Because boy, we all miss that, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, and I think it's important that we do address that and bring that, because I think a lot of students, and from what I've heard, a lot of students come and they just don't hear really responses. And I think that's important for for us to at least be transparent on our end and letting students know that, hey, this is what we hope. And although, as you exactly just mentioned right now, we don't know what's going to come. We don't know, the Delta virus all of a sudden came in and threw so many things off course. But to quickly add on, to that part, I know a lot of students have been talking, and even already now, about commencement and the plans for that, and kind of what the university has in plan for that.
Yeah, such an important question. So we are all, and I am especially looking forward to conducting a series of in-person commencement exercise as long as the health conditions permit. It would be, as you know, it would be my very first opportunity to celebrate all of our graduates as you walk across that commencement stage. It really is, without exception, my favorite time of year. And I just can't wait for that moment. So we absolutely hope so. Again, pending, public health guidance, what we are permitted to do. We will make announcements. We plan to make those announcements about commencement ceremonies by January 2022. And our plans will include opportunities for the classes of 2020 and 2021 to participate. So look for that.
Awesome. Fantastic. And I'm happy we are getting on that earlier. And I know that's super important for students. And I know I've been, asked a lot about that even already now. And so, updating students on that is key, and letting them know that we are thinking about it. And these are the conversations that we are having even right now about commencement for fall and for spring, are in the works. And so obviously, we do hope we can do that in person and, allow students to walk, which is greatly important.
And it would be the party of a lifetime, because we've been waiting for it for a long time.
Very highly anticipated. I definitely agree with you on that. So I wanted to also touch on, a couple other things that, were brought up within, some of the questions and even the conversations that I've had with students, talking about some of our, our students that maybe don't get, enough love, and to be straight up, like, I think that's something that, we haven't done a good job within AS, is talking about our transfer students, and talking about our students, our parent scholars, our parent students who, are very vital and important to our campus. And in terms of, and I'll start with transfer students, can you maybe talk about some of the work that, is being done for our transfer student population, and obviously a huge population here, especially at CSUN, and kind of some of the work that you all are planning on doing in terms of, our transfer students?
Yeah, something I heard in my listening tour as well, Jonathan, and so important. A huge transfer student population, and we value our transfer students so very much. And part of why we have such a strong transfer student population is because we have these really strong partnerships with our regional community colleges. And you might be surprised to know just how many of our faculty and staff were themselves transfer students. So the transfer pathways are really critical in achieving equitable educational outcomes. And I referenced that, in my opening remarks, that we have these pathways for timely graduation, that we address credit loss and transfer, and really rethink financial aid policies that don't serve our transfer students as well, and non-traditional students as well. So just know that we're very committed to this work. So some of the colleges and departments have developed curriculum gateways, and they're really designed to engage new transfer students into the major. A lot of departments have specialized advising for transfer students and have welcome events specifically for transfer students. Our transfer orientation is growing. It's growing every year. So I think that tells us that there's a real hunger, as identified in your question, about engaging and building community amongst our transfer students. Enrollment Services has been redesigning their outreach to prospective students to really serve the unique needs of our transfer students relative to our incoming freshmen. There's a badge project that the Health Equity Research and Education Center, I hope I got that acronym exactly right. They've created this to support transfer students, and I know that the students themselves built something called the Transfer Student Alliance. CSUN Connections is a partnership with some of our largest feeder community colleges. And that's really cool because it's really allowing students, once they transfer to us, if they haven't already claimed their associate's degrees, or that they've come really close to it, but they transferred to us before they got it. It's a reverse transfer process, making sure that they get that, that well-earned associate's degree. I would say that there is a lot going on, but I would also say that what you and I are hearing is real, and that CSUN's a really big place, and a lot of this work has been decentralized. So I think that the next chapter of our work is to really pull all of those individual pieces together, so that our transfer students are all aware of them, but also importantly, that they have the ability to shape the future direction so that it's meeting their needs. And one of the things that I did hear in the course of my listening tour from transfer students, I heard this also from non-residential students, is this real hunger for additional ways to build community and spend time on campus outside of class, and connect with their peers. And I will say that our conversations about identity-based resource centers is one of the ways that we're exploring that. But again, I would encourage everybody to lean into the conversations, let us know, let you guys know what they really need, so that we can be responsive, because that is, most certainly our goal is we can't understand what those experiences are like unless students share them with us.
Absolutely. And I cannot stress that last part that you just mentioned about really finding your place on campus. And I think now more than ever, we're online, and it's that much harder to really be able to connect with students. And you can't just go outside your classroom and just start talking to students in your class. Oh, hey, like, and having those basic conversations that we're so used to. And even, for students that are much newer, when they had that, even in their high school experience. And that is definitely a strong point on what we're trying to do here within Associated Students. And I know my Vice President Orozco and I have been very keen on working with our different mentorship programs as well that we have on campus, which is a huge way to get involved. And I know that's something as well that we've been trying to allow students and give students those opportunities to really find their place on campus and where they connect to and really build, that part of them there. And I definitely agree with you on that, and really want students to have that opportunity. Perfect. So I wanted to then go on to the second point. I know we are a little bit short on time, but I wanted to, talk about our student parents and some of the work that, you all are doing there. And I know that's, again, another group on campus that sometimes it isn't really heard. And it's something that, I've been hearing a lot as of recently, especially, but maybe can you talk about as well some of the stuff that you and your entire administration are working on to help support our student parents?
Yeah. So, yeah, we recognize many of our students are also parents, right? And that the lived experiences that they bring to campus really enriches our academic community, and the kinds of discussions that transpire both inside and outside of the classroom. But of course, we know that parents have a great deal to balance in the course of pursuing their educational journey. I am a parent myself, balancing every day. And there are resources to help our student parents. So we provide childcare, for example, through the AS Children's Center. There is a parenting support group in University Counseling Services. We have lactation accommodations, so important, in various locations around campus, and access to the Family Focus Resource Center, and that's for students with children with special needs. And we do offer family housing in University Village apartments. I know that many of our programs offer flexible hours to accommodate beyond a 9-to-5 schedule, knowing that caregiving needs and work schedules and coursework just place a significant demand on our students who are parents, but know that it doesn't always meet every student's need, and so we're trying to be as responsive as possible. I will say that many of our students have told me recently that they're really benefiting from the introduction of virtual programming and support services that we didn't necessarily offer before the pandemic. We've talked about this, and maybe didn't think to offer, before the pivot to a wholly virtual engagement, that it's made these services, especially in the context of a very full set of responsibilities, much more accessible. And so we're really looking at the places where we need to retain and even expand virtual services to better serve our students. So, we are definitely doing some things on campus, but again, always open to and responsive to adjusting. I think that's, we're lifelong learners as well, as leaders and faculty and staff in the university. So, we learn from you guys just as much, if not more than you learn from us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you brought up, very valid points, and something that, although, COVID has been quite detrimental, there are, a few silver linings. And I think one of those, as you just mentioned, was, allowing a lot of our resources to be a lot more accessible for students who maybe can't come onto campus, or maybe, don't have the luxury of being able to live near campus and have to commute. And I'm, an example of one of those where, I have to drive out to CSUN every day. And maybe I can't make that time, or maybe it's during a class where I have scheduled. So I think that's definitely a great point to bring up, and something that I hope, and I've already been in conversation with a couple of deans within the university about really, keeping some of those classes maybe offered partially online still, and maybe still have those opportunities to offer still in person. So we are really giving that accessibility and that opportunity for all our students to be successful in whatever format is possible for them.
Yeah, I think it really is, despite the tragic circumstances that got us here, I do think there's an opportunity to be reflective in ways, to, lessons learned, and to be really responsive to students. There's just a lot of things that hadn't really, higher ed as a general collective, we hadn't thought about. And I think there's some real opportunity there, and look forward to exploring that with campus and with students especially.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, as we wrap up, I did want to touch on one last question, and it is definitely a bigger question. And I know you touched on this a little bit in your address as well, and talking about the educational and the equity gap. And I don't know if you're able to discuss maybe a little bit of the university strategy for really tackling this educational equity gap that there is, and how you all plan to really move forward to bridge that gap.
Yeah, such a critical question. So let me explain what the equity gap is, as well, for students who may not know, because it occurs to me that would be helpful. So we know that here on our campus and universities around the country, white students graduate at a higher rate than their non-white peers. And there are also equity gaps around Pell eligibility and income, first generation status, all of there, there are equity gaps. And what we need to do is to understand the reasons that they exist and eliminate them in perpetuity. This is not just a CSUN issue. This is a national issue at every university in the country. And really the future of our innovation economy and really the strength of our democratic republic requires that we take bold and timely action to ensure that all of our students have a very clear pathway to timely graduation, so that you can soar beyond our doors as leaders, creators, and innovators. There is so much work going on around campus aimed at eliminating equity gaps, everything from efforts to reimagine advising, to expansion of basic needs, to clear curricular pathways, to engaging our students holistically in co-curricular activities, and really building this sense of community. That one of the things that we know very clearly plays a substantive impact on student success is that they feel that they belong, and that everyone around them believes in them and is really committed to helping them to succeed in a holistic way, right? So we're not just engaging students intellectually, which is what we're really good at historically in higher ed. We're engaging students holistically and recognizing they bring them their whole identities and every aspect of their lived experiences with them to the university, and that we need to address all of those pieces to really help them, realize their potential. So I mentioned a whole host of them, and I would say that there are many, many more. I think that what this next chapter in our journey really requires is one, and you'll hear me say this a lot, and you have heard me say this a lot, is the intentionality around that our priority is they need to not exist, to be zero. And we need to disaggregate data in such a way that we understand which gaps exist where, and try and hypothesis test around why, because there are different reasons in different places. Sometimes there are administrative barriers, very clear administrative barriers that we don't realize exist. But students have no agency to remove administrative barriers. That is what they expect of and deserve from the administration. And so trying to understand where those are, where we can reimagine policies and processes to ensure that they aren't the reason that students aren't succeeding. And I would say that this is really center stage in the roadmap for the future. And students will see a lot of that. And I think it is also about taking, and it's a recurring theme that I touched on earlier in other aspects of the university, to get to the next level of success, it's about taking all of the individual programs, activities, initiatives that are really good, that people have been working on for a long time, and really elevating them, amplifying them, and resourcing them, and having an institutional strategy so that it isn't an individual strategy in individual places that can be uneven throughout the university, and that it is our collective responsibility. It is everyone's responsibility in ensuring equity and student success on campus. And I think that's the really exciting work ahead. There's no question that the Global HSI Equity Innovation Hub will help us do that, because it will also help us learn from experts around the country. And this is really important work, but it takes time, and it takes multiple strategies and a very clear pathway to assessing efforts. And so I'm really looking forward to learning from other leaders around the country, throughout the CSU, and from our students as we work together to really problem solve and make sure that they don't exist ever again. And I'm very confident that we will get there.
Absolutely, and so am I. Fantastic. Well, that about wraps it up on for our time. So I first of all, a huge thank you to you, President Beck, for sitting down with us and really having this conversation. And I know this is something that is important to what we're doing, and you replicating that and showing that here today is super important, and I think really shows and says a lot for our students here at CSUN. And so thank you very much again for making time and coming to speak to us today.
Yes, well, it was my pleasure. I'm so delighted to spend time with you. And I would say to all of the students, if you are on campus this semester and you see me, please stop me and say hello. Would love to hear how you're doing and learn more about your experiences at CSUN. So have a great rest of your Thursday. I know there's lots of additional exciting activities later today, and I look forward to seeing you again a little later, Jonathan.
Yes, absolutely. And I do look forward to seeing you at the convocation. So I just as well wanted to quickly remind everyone else that we do plan on continuing to do these campus conversations for next month. I'm very excited that we're going to be having Provost Walker with us on October 26th at 11 a.m. The link was just put in the chat. So please do not forget to RSVP for that. And again, if you have questions, these are the times to really ask. And Provost Walker, who works obviously on the academic side of things, this would be a great opportunity to ask any questions relating to really the academics of what we're doing here at CSUN. And so I'm very excited about that. And please check out that website for more information on all of the upcoming conversations as well. And I'm very excited. And also next week, we are hosting our Matter Experience Fair Monday through Wednesday. So please, if you are on campus, do not forget to stop by and check out. We are going to be outside the university library launch. So definitely stop by there, and we'll be doing so in a safe way as well. And finally, just as a reminder, today is the day to submit your attestation form. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure you do that. It is super important, and making sure if you are on campus to making sure that you do fill out that form as well. But with that, thank you very much. I'm not sure, President Beck, if you had anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up.
No, thank you for the reminding everyone about the attestation, and look forward to the series.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your semester. And I hope to see you all very soon.